I'm a wizard. I like protocol design, protocol architecture, and Bitcoin scaling in general, and privacy too. And that's what I do. I love crafting magic. And I'm assembling a team of cyberfunks, Bitcoin engineers, and DAOs to build the first implementation, Ark implementation. Ark solves a technical problem called inbound liquidity and introduces a business problem, capital. Ark uses ATLCs, it stands for Anchored Timelock Contracts, versus HTLCs, Hashtag Timelock Contracts, used on Lightning. Being able to transact value comes first, that's the basis, and privacy can come on layers above. And that's what my thesis is. And Ark checks privacy and scalability at the same time. Theoretically, Ark can scale great, scale in theory, maybe even onboard the whole planet, maybe, at least from the on-chain footprint standpoint, like the upper bound limit, onboarding a whole planet. Ark service providers have no ability to steal your funds.
Burak is the creator of Ark, a second layer solution designed for scaling Bitcoin. In ways, it's inspired by elements of Bitcoin's base blockchain, the Lightning Network, eCash, and coinjoins, and we got into all of the details of how Ark will work during our conversation. If you enjoy this episode and if you learn something new from it, the best way you can show your support for the show is by sending in sats over the Lightning Network. You can use any Podcasting 2.0 app to do that. There are dozens of them out there, but my favorite one to use is Fountain. Before we get into today's show, just a quick message from our sponsors. Today's show is sponsored by Voltage. Voltage is the premier provider of Bitcoin and Lightning node infrastructure. Today's show is also sponsored by Stackwork. And Stackwork is a Lightning-powered transcription tool that takes the best of AIs and humans to create better, faster, and less expensive transcripts. We'll have more from Voltage and Stackwork later in the show. Burak, welcome to the show. I am so excited to learn more about Ark. I first discovered what you were building a couple weeks ago in Austin. We were both at BTC++, and there you revealed what would soon become Ark. It was named TBD XXX then, and as a placeholder. And I sat there and listened to it, and I thought it was a really interesting concept, but I have a lot of questions for you. Before we get into any of that, though, why don't you step back and tell people about your background in your path to discovering Bitcoin and Lightning?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk more about Ark and maybe to address some of the questions you might have and some misconceptions. So maybe to give a bit of a story of myself, my name is Burak. I'm also known as the distributor of LND and I'm also the creator of Ark. But I started initially in Bitcoin like back in 2017. I think. Yeah, I remember I seen a video online about mining and it got my interest. Just that I was just so curious how you turn electricity into value and all that. And that's how I got into Bitcoin for the first time. And then over time, I started to research Lightning. I mean, Bitcoin, deep down how Bitcoin works and all that. Because I initially also come from a technical background. I did some mobile programming in the past. And so that, yeah, I tried to sort of research Bitcoin, how it works and all that. And I started working on a Bitcoin wallet, like an on-chain Bitcoin mobile wallet. It was called Gateway Wallet at the time. And I built it and shipped it. And then from there, it's been a long story, right? So from there, I think I realized at some point, okay, Bitcoin on-chain doesn't scale, right? And Bitcoin doesn't scale, right? Fundamentally constrained. I think it was around the time 2017, 2018, the big block versus small block debates stuff happening at the time. And then I thought Bitcoin would never scale, and Bitcoin, obviously it doesn't scale as it is, and I thought it can only scale on the base layer. I thought, and then I sort of ended up in the big blocker sort of camp for a while. And then from there, at some point, few years ago, I did some projects and some pet projects on Bitcoin Cash for a while, because Bitcoin Cash is is a fork of Bitcoin, but with additional opcodes and functionality stuff. But then, at some point, I tried to build an AMM on Bitcoin Cash, but it turned out, okay, it's not as expressive as expected, although it has some additional opcodes and functionalities. And then I got introduced to Bitcoin, through Liquid. And I moved onto Liquid, like pivoting the AMM project into Liquid. It's called Bitmetrics. It's live on Liquid today. So it's like a fully functional automated market maker. I'm built on Liquid. It's live. It's been there for about a year, and it took me 2 years. It was me and a friend of me working on it. It took me 2 years to build ship the product, and it's literally like a constant product market maker based on the UTXO model, built on covenants. So I had 2 years long experience in building covenant R&D. And based on my experience, based on what I learned on Liquid, um, based on my covenant research and development experience, I tried to do some sort of. I shifted my focus in the Bitcoin space, like on overall Lightning Bitcoin only from Liquid, to see what can I do with Bitcoin, like with covenants. Obviously, Bitcoin doesn't have covenants, but based on what I've learned, let's see what we can do on Bitcoin only on the base layer or on Lightning. And I started to learn. I mean, dig more deeper into Lightning, like Lightning, how it works under the hood. Obviously, as someone who initially started on a big blockers camp, I've had severe objections to Lightning, from inbound liquidity to offline receiving, right, to interactivity requirements and all that. And I've had severe objections, but okay, let's give it one more try, Lightning. And then, okay, I started to explore more in Lightning, and the more I explored, the more I realized, okay, some of my objections, centered around the UX, end user experience, are kind of addressable, based on what I've learned on Liquid. Um, and they're addressable potentially, right? And then I decided to work on a new Lightning wallet. And I created a repo for it. I started putting together some specifications for the wallet. Um, and it was based on some interesting ideas like I've come up with, such as like uh, establishing channels one way only, like unidirectional instead of bidirectional, so that you don't have to be online to sign for channel breaches. Because when when you operate channels one way only, state is always in your favor, i.e., and obviously whenever you make a payment, the idea was that you make a submarine swap out or from off chain to on chain, and that swap becomes a channel, non-interactive channel on its own. And then I had this idea of the shared UTXO model, like we have a bunch of submarine swaps, yes, but it doesn't scale. Submarine swaps do not scale on chain. Um, and that's typically what happens when you use like got onboard to Lightning, right? When you're onboard to Lightning, you receive a submarine swap, right? Um, but I mean, my whole idea went a bit more extreme, right? Submarine swap for everything, but let's aggregate all these swap outs like in a shared UTXO model. And that's kind of how Ark started. Like, Ark evolved from a UTX, like a Lightning wallet idea, to a distinct layer 2 protocol of its own. And like at some point, I realized what I'm working on Ark is not Lightning. It's a different kind of thing. Like it's like a Rapid is a protocol for the Rapid coinjoins, but they're off chain. It's based on the UTXO model. It doesn't have inbound liquidity constraints and no nothing. I mean, I hopefully no interactivity requirements because it's not a channel design. It's not a state channel design. Unlike Lightning, I mean, the initial idea was to be Lightning mode, but at some point I realized, okay, I can strip out this channel port and let's just make them like it's still 12.2, like a Lightning channel, but let's make it like a UTXO, like a coin, like one-time use only coin. So the main difference is, I think I can give this analogy, right? Arc is similar to Lightning. Again, Arc has similarities to Lightning. It has similarities to on-chain, to side chains. But like Arc is similar to Lightning on that you have like a 12.2, but it's not a channel. I mean, maybe to give this giving this analogy makes sense. Like it's like a channel, like 12.2 channel, but like instead of signing a bunch of state updates from this channel, it's a 12.2. Just sign for one state update, just one, and that state update destroys that channel, and you destroy a channel, that 12.2, to create a new channel. But that channel, the new channel, is also 12.2, and it's also one-time use only. So that whenever you make a payment, you push all channel liquidity into your channel partner site, one-time use only, and all of it. And just like how UTXOs work, when you spend a UTXO, you destroy it. You destroy the whole entire funds held in that UTXO, and you create new UTXOs. So it resembles the on-chain UX. So like it's just like how on-chain funds flow on an on-chain wallet, like on an on-chain UX. It's similar. You destroy coins and you create new coins, but it has also these coins are also 2 of 2, like Lightning, and you only sign one state update because it's a 2 of 2. You co-sign, you collaboratively sign with your channel partner to do it. So it's similarities with Lightning on that. But think of it as like again Lightning channel with one-time use only, and you sign one state update to destroy it and to create a new one. And this entire sort of like payment schedule from sender to receiver is atomic. It's absolutely atomic. So that if there is a double spend in the mempool layer, like in the mempool level, I get a refund. Like you cannot take my money if there is a double spend. Just like on chain, like if you double spend a transaction in mempool today, you cannot receive it. The recipient cannot receive it. I mean, the service provider in this case cannot take it, cannot steal funds. I get a refund. I receive a refund because it's not confirmed. I get my sort of, so to speak, my UTXO was never spent in the first place because it was not confirmed. So it has similarities with Lightning on that. And things have evolved. Yes, I've been working on this for about 6 months, more or less, and I've been researching Lightning for about a year, more or less. And Ark, well, it's been constantly evolving. I've been constantly iterating the idea, the design, the specs. It's been constantly evolving, and at some point I realized Ark kind of seems optimal. Like now, I mean, the design I've ended up with, like the current design, the latest, it seems optimal. Um, it's very optimal now because I've been constantly iterating, addressing the edge cases and all that, the problems like liquidity problems, and what happens in this edge case if you go offline, and what happens if you're non-collaborative, non-responsive, and all that. So I've been trying to cover all edge cases and trying to optimize Arc for the best privacy preserving practices, like for the most optimal privacy too.
Very
Um,
cool.
because we're speaking in terms of scalability and privacy terms here. Like we have it, our kind of has to check. It checks all boxes, kind of. There are some trade-offs, obviously. We'll come to that, but
Yeah,
it scales Bitcoin, but also it has a decent level of receiver privacy at its
very
core.
cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So that's a great high level there.
Mhm.
I want to touch on something you mentioned at the beginning. You said at first you were part of this kind of big blocker camp,
Yeah.
and you managed to change your mind.
Yeah.
And then you kind of discovered Liquid, and then you discovered Lightning. It seems like throughout your career in Bitcoin, you have changed your mind on a few different things, and
Yeah.
you've managed to bounce between different ideas seamlessly. Whereas I find that a lot of the crypto industry, a lot of the Bitcoin industry, is very tribal. You get kind of sucked into an idea, and that is your idea, and you stick with it, and those are your people, and you never change. And it's sometimes very hard for people to
Yeah.
uh, recognize when an idea is no longer valid, or switch over to another idea. I want to get your sense for how you kind of build a mental framework to make that decision, to change from the big blocker camp to, oh, here's this interesting thing you can do on Bitcoin, and oh, now Liquid, oh, now Lightning, oh, now Ark.
So like I'm in general like a skeptical person. I have this skeptical characteristics of me. Like I've been always a skeptical of Bitcoin in the first place. When I met Bitcoin, I got interested in Bitcoin first, like back in 2017. I've been a skeptical, right? Skeptic. And then I moved into sort of big blocker sort of camp. I also been a skeptic about big blockers. Yeah, it scales based there, but there are some trade-offs obviously, and it cannot even also like yeah, you can scale it further, but there's some also trade-offs like it cannot scale infinitely, right? Indefinitely. And like and then I moved to Bitcoin, Liquid stuff, and I was also skeptical about Liquid, right? Because it's not perfect. It's a federated sidechain. And then I moved into Bitcoin, exploring the Lightning space, right? And I was also skeptical about Lightning. And then I moved on Arc, and my skepticism sort of turned me into like the work on, like led me to work on Arc, and Arc building and contributing the specs and designing the idea of Arc. And all these things in terms of like scalability, like how can this scale? Scaling comes first and privacy next. So Does Bitcoin on-chain scale? No. On the base layer, with if you increase the block size, yes, but it doesn't scale infinitely, right? It scales just more, but it cannot onboard the whole planet to it, and that's also what led me to move into Liquid. But the trade-off there is, again, it's federated, right? And onto Lightning, yeah, it's great. It's a scaling solution, right? But you cannot onboard the whole planet to it. It does it does a great job in scaling, but it's not perfect enough. It's not enough to onboard the whole planet, right? And that I have this idea of onboarding the whole planet. I don't know. I have this idea. I'm dreaming of it. That's what my sort of goal is, like long-term vision is, like to onboarding the whole planet is a big challenge. I like challenges, and so it's a great challenge for me.
Hmm.
And I don't see how Lightning can do it. Maybe we can come to that. But Lightning cannot do it, and Ark can hopefully do it. We have a chance at least with Ark. I'm also skeptical, but I'm very confident at the same time. Like I'm very confident that Ark can scale to at least theoretically scale based on the design I have in my mind. And the design I'm reflecting to specifications that I'm working on. I'm currently working on the specs, contributing the specs. I recently started working on it. But theoretically, Arc can scale great, scale in theory, maybe even onboard the whole planet, maybe. At least from an on-chain footprint standpoint, like the upper bound limit, onboarding a whole planet
Hmm.
standpoint may end up not scaling to the whole planet, but at least scaling to a greater degree, right?
Right.
Certainly does a great job than Lightning. And I think in the end it's going to be a spectrum, probably, like from custodians on one edge to non fully self-custodial on the other edge. I mean, in the middle spectrum of solutions, protocols like fed them into I know, liquid, some federated sidechain stuff. We'll see. We'll
Hmm.
see how it ends up. But I think we should give people an option, like a seamless, frictionless option, because people are lazy. They crave for the best UX, and
Hmm.
I believe, like if it's not great enough, the UX and user, they just use custodial services, and that's what we see. The trend we're seeing, or Lightning, the challenges of Lightning incentivizes people to prefer custodial solutions over non-custodial, and Zaps, Nostr, they play a huge role in this. We're saying, and if
Hmm.
but my thesis is that if we make like the UX, custodial UX, as frictionless and as seamless as custodial UX, like Stripe, a Strike, or Vault of Satoshi, I think people can very well use self-custodial mode in that case, because there is no friction in mode. It's just like a custodial UX, and yet you retain your keys and you
Yeah.
retain your self-custody. So that's my thesis. I might be wrong on this. People might still prefer custodial solutions, but I think yeah, I don't see a reason why wouldn't they switch? Because it's as seamless as a custodial UX, but it's also self-custodial. You also have privacy benefits too.
Hmm.
eCash does it too. Like Xiaomi eCash also has privacy benefits too. But I'm just seeing. I'm also skeptical. Like, although art can work in my mind, like it can work, is it strong enough, right? The network. I mean, is it does it really have the product market fit for people? Like, people do really want self custody. I know I'm a Bitcoiner. I'm living in this bubble, Bitcoin Twitter bubble, right? I'm surrounded by plebs, Bitcoiners. Amazing, I love it. But obviously Bitcoiners want this, right? Self custody. But I'm skeptical if people want this, right? Do they really want to retain their keys? I hope they do, and I'm working to give them an option, like people an option to self custody their Bitcoin.
That's very cool. And I love that vision of trying to onboard everyone to Bitcoin
Mhm.
and trying all these different strategies to do it and coming up with this design as, your best, version of that vision. I want to touch on something you said at the beginning there. You said, first comes scalability and then comes privacy.
Yeah, yeah.
Why do they come in that order?
Yeah, I mean, scalability comes first, right? If I am not able to transact Bitcoin, what is the point of privacy in the first place? Like, if we are to trade off privacy versus scalability, I would personally rather scalability. We should be able to transact value, right? In consensus with others. we transact value first, right? The settlement layer comes first, being able to transact, settle, the ability to transfer value from one entity to other, right? From one party to other without asking for corporation, I mean permission, without requiring any trust, no trust involved. Being able to transact value comes first. That's the basis. And privacy can come on layers above. And that's what my thesis is. And Ark checks privacy and scalability at the same time. It checks kind of all boxes. Also the convenience of use.
What comes after privacy in that step phase? First comes scalability, then comes privacy. What comes after that?
Maybe like some use cases, some utility, like utilizing Bitcoin in some ways. I don't know, maybe you can count this as DeFi. I don't know. I don't really care much about DeFi use cases, but from what I see, people, if you have scalability, privacy, what would be the next? Maybe utility, utilizing Bitcoin in
Yeah.
some degenerate use cases. I don't know. That's what people crave for, at least from what I see. This
Mm-hmm.
app, it has product market fit, right?
Right.
I'm not working towards that goal, but I think that comes next. But
I see.
I'm perfectly fine with, Arc moves Bitcoin, right? And that's what it does. You can maybe do some asset issuance stuff like Terra does on Arc. Some, I don't know, security tokens and stable coins and all that. You can do it technically. But you can maybe also you can build some P2P trading between Bitcoin. And I can see a way you can do it. Like you can trade Bitcoin for fiat, like an issued asset on the protocol in Arc. Like these are like long-term extension, like visions, long-term extensions, future extensions of Arc. I mean, hypothetically speaking, can be deployed like asset issuance layer on top. We can do it, and in that case, well, you have a utility now. We can trade value in between. Maybe that might come next, but we have to fix moving Bitcoin first. That's the priority.
Right. That makes sense. Okay, so now we've danced around the topic of Arc so far. Can you give listeners just a simple kind of like high level explainer of Arc and how it compares to other kind of second layer or scaling solutions? Because there are now a lot of them out there. We've touched on a few of them here. Where does Arc fit in the broader kind of like scaling ecosystem?
Yeah, so like when we look at Bitcoin today, like Lightning I see is the only layer two we have, and I don't see a second. Some people say the state chains might also be a layer two, but to me it's a very clear definition, like a layer two. To me the layer two definition is very clear. Like it's a piece of different software. You transact Bitcoin off the chain without touching on chain, without polluting on chain, entirely off the chain on a second layer. Yet you can exit, you can revert your money back to on-chain unilaterally, right, without asking for permission from anyone. You can exit the second layer. Um, and by that definition, I think Lightning is the only one we have on Bitcoin. And Arc, hopefully, it will be the second alternative to Lightning. It's not competing with Lightning at all. It addresses different like another problem. I think Lightning, well, I mean Lightning and Arc, they both move Bitcoin, but Lightning is better suited for vendors and Arc for end users. So the thing with Lightning is a network of payment channels, and it's constrained by the liquidity deployed on these channels. So you have this liquidity problem. So you have to, as an end user, like you have to take care of. It's your burden to manage liquidity, making sure that you have enough inbound liquidity to receive. Um, and it's a disaster UX for end users. End users just don't care. It just has to be frictionless, right? No friction involved. But Lightning is great for vendors. If you're a vendor, again, like your cash inflows are predictable, you can acquire liquidity, you can run a specialized software like in your POS terminal or in like something like a BTC-based server. It's great, and you demand instant settlement. You don't want chargebacks. You don't want fraud, right? It's great. Lightning is great. On Arc, well, you don't have these channel management issues, no liquidity issues, no friction to onboarding. The entry barrier is seamless, right? Lightning has this entry barrier issue, also liquidity management issue, and merchants/vendors can take care of it. That's great. It's a great solution for them. And that's what they demand, right? Instant settlement. On Ark, Ark has none of these issues, right? It's just like an on-chain wallet. You download a piece of software, Ark Wallet, Ark Client. It can be non-interactive, hopefully, with covenants. We'll come to that. But in an ideal world, it's a piece of software. It can be a web client or extension wallet or mobile client. You just download a piece of software. You have an address, Bitcoin address, Ark address. Well, it's a public key. It's probably going to be an MPUB. You can get paid from that address. You can pay to an address just like an on-chain wallet, no friction. You can receive when you're offline on the go. You can pay someone without, assuming the recipient end has enough inbound liquidity, without any second thought. You can transact Bitcoin, you can move Bitcoin, also in a privacy-preserving way, but most importantly, in a convenient way. That's what Ark does, and that's not what Lightning can do for end users. And for end users, it's a disaster. Especially the initial onboarding phase, how do I onboard to Lightning? What happens is most often with non-custodial self-claimed Lightning wallets, you receive a submarine swap in the first place, when you onboard. But that inherently doesn't scale. Submarine swaps by nature do not scale. Anything that hits the chain doesn't scale, including submarine swaps. And in fact, submarine swaps, it's unpredictable what your liquidity, what your cash inflows will be, right? As an end user, it's unpredictable. For vendors, it is predictable. For end user, it's not. I sometimes receive zaps, sometimes regular money transfers, sometimes remittances. It's highly unpredictable. And if I'm here to from Lightning user standpoint, if I'm here to receive some money, I can only claim, right? I claim my need, my cash inflow of need to my channel partner and ask my channel partner to open an inbound channel to me, but I can only claim. But I cannot prove it. I cannot prove that I need it. I can't. It's a subject to denial of service. On Lightning, in order to receive, I need to ask someone to open a channel to me, but I cannot prove I need it. On Ark, liquidity, I receive what sender wants to send. Just like on chain, I receive what sender sends, and liquidity for that is entirely utilized. Liquidity for that transaction is provided by the service provider, and we call them Ark service providers. And utility 100% there, is 100% utilized. On Lightning, it may or may not be utilized. But a trade-off we have there, Lightning funds in a Lightning channel can move forever in that channel. So it's more efficient because Lightning channels are bidirectional. But here on Ark, it's one way only, and service providers, they have to contribute, right? They have to contribute with their money, right? They have to provide liquidity on an ongoing basis, and liquidity gets exhausted at some point because it's a one-way only design. So liquidity providers in this case, this is the main trade-off we have, right? Liquidity providers, they need to provide a lot of liquidity, ideal 5-10x more liquidity. I mean, liquidity requirements are extreme compared to Lightning, but that's the main trade-off. But I'm very happy with this trade-off because on Lightning, you're a channel partner and you have a channel partner, right? You're equally responsible for the management of this channel, which is a disaster for the end user. On Ark, it's like a channel too, kind of. I don't like this analogy though, but it's me and my channel partner. My channel partner in this case is the Ark service provider. It's like a channel. A VTXO is a channel, 2 of 2. But I'm not responsible for anything. My channel partner takes care of me, takes care of everything for me, the liquidity. So it offloads complexity from the end user into the service provider. Yet I retain my self-custody. So that's what's magical about Ark. It offloads complexity. So service providers' job is 10x more difficult, but as an end user, as the end user entity, me, I don't have any friction. I don't have any burden. So there is a trade-off, right? But the trade-off favors me. The trade-off is in favor of me, the end user, and the end user matters, right? We plebs, end users matter, right? For vendors, it's great. They can take care of it. They can take care of their needs. but end users, my service provider, someone else should be taking care of it. And Ark and Lightning are interoperable. So I can use Ark to send money for regular money transfers. And obviously, Ark is not as instant as Lightning today. So that's the main trade-off. The other trade-off is liquidity, like capital. So capital requirements is one trade-off. The other one is Ark payments are not as instant as Lightning, but there are two buts. It's not as instant as Lightning, yes, but on Lightning, in order for it to be instant, you have to have enough inbound liquidity anyway, which doesn't scale anyway, right? So if you have enough inbound liquidity, which is a big if, it is instant, yes, but you are likely not going to have it because it doesn't scale to a planetary level. Inbound liquidity doesn't scale to a planetary level. Talking about at a large scale, it might scale today, okay, but not in a large scale, right? On Ark, it's not as instant as Lightning. We don't have inbound liquidity. But funds are like when you receive a payment, it's not confirmed, right? And you have to ideally wait for confirmations, on-chain confirmations, right? In order to consider quote unquote final, that payment. Just like an on-chain wallet. However, there is a but, right? But you don't have to wait to spend it. Ark has immediate availability with delayed finality. So when I receive some money on Ark, yes, I should wait confirmations to spend it, to consider it final, but I can spend it. And spending comes in two forms, right? I can either make an internal transfer, meaning I can hand over my VTXO to someone, just like how you can chain unconfirmed transactions on mempool on Bitcoin. I can chain VTXOs unconfirmed on mempool, just like that. Or I can pay Lightning invoices with my VTXOs, my Ark funds. So I have an Ark wallet. It's a piece of interactive software, non-interactive software. I receive a payment. It's not confirmed, right? It's in the mempool. It sits in the mempool. But I don't have to wait to spend it on Lightning. I can just go to a Starbucks in El Salvador and McDonald's and just can pay Lightning invoice with the funds unconfirmed, like with my unconfirmed funds. I can pay Lightning invoice through my service provider because the service provider is a 2-of-2, right? My coins, my funds are 2-of-2 between me and the service provider. And because I'm routing payment through my service provider, it is a foot gun for service provider to double spend it. Because when I pay Lightning invoice, it's already gone, right? The funds I receive, funds I'm about to receive, about to be confirmed, are gone already. I paid an invoice. So in the happy case, in the collaborative case, it works just seamless. I don't have to wait to spend funds. So that's what Ark is good at. Like, it has immediate availability on mempool, but with delayed finality. Yet I can spend it. On Lightning, well, it's not quite the same. Like, assuming you have enough inbound liquidity, great, but it's a big assumption. But if you don't, it's even worse. If you don't have enough inbound liquidity on Ark, so on Lightning, sorry, if you don't have enough inbound liquidity on Lightning, and you are to receive a payment, you receive a submarine swap, and that submarine swap you can make it another Lightning channel. But because it's unconfirmed, you cannot spend that channel funds because it's not confirmed. Because if you don't consider, because if you don't wait for that channel to confirm and reveal your preimage from the sender, like you create your preimage and you receive a payment from the sender to a channel which forms a channel, submarine swap channel, and I have a preimage. If I reveal my preimage before that channel confirms, and I reveal it to spend the funds in that channel, the service, like a swap service provider in this case, can double spend that channel, yet takes sender's money because I revealed my preimage. so that swap service providers on the Lightning case, in case where you don't have enough inbound liquidity and you want to receive a payment to spend it further, it doesn't work because you reveal your preimage. Service provider can take receiver's money, inflate HDLC between the sender and the service provider, yet double spends the channel 12-2. So on Ark, it's not the case. Ark uses ATLCs. It stands for Anchored Timelock Contracts versus HDLCs, hashtag timelock contracts used on Lightning. ATLCs versus ATLCs, HDLCs, or even PTLCs, right? HDLCs are the absolute force. PTLCs is an improvement to that. But whether it's HDLCs or PTLCs, right, used on Lightning, I mean, PTLCs are not, it's a proposal, it's on the making. But whether it's HDLCs or PTLCs, you are still constrained by liquidity deployed on your channel. And it's not absolute atomic. HDLCs and PTLCs are not absolute atomic. And what I mean by absolute atomicity on the Ark, ATLCs, with ATLCs on Ark, when you receive a payment, and if there is a double spend, just like the double spend in the Lightning channel case, like submarine swap case, there is a double spend. Double spend in this case is the coinjoin transaction on Ark. The sender cannot take the service provider cannot take sender's money. Sender receives a refund because a double spend attempt on Ark breaks the atomicity entirely. And this is a mempool level double spend. If things are confirmed, then no problem. You can receive payments on the go. It will be confirmed when you're back. But assuming you are online, you're receiving a payment from someone to pay to someone else, i.e. handing over coins on the mempool. On the Ark, if service provider double spends that coin join, the pool transaction, it's a buzzword, right? The pool transaction is an Ark term. It's also the coin join transaction itself. It breaks the atomicity. And if there is double spend, receiver gets a refund. Like a service provider cannot take receiver's money. Unlike on submarine swaps on Ark, off-chain to on-chain submarine swaps, because I reveal my preimage for an unconfirmed transaction, for an unconfirmed HDLC, right? The service provider can take sender's money, can steal sender's money. But on Ark, it's not quite the case. It's atomic, absolute atomic. We ensure absolute atomicity. And that's how you can hand over coins in the mempool on an ongoing basis and pay invoices too, pay Lightning invoices.
Very interesting. Now, why would someone want to be a service provider on Ark?
Yeah, so Ark is a liquidity protocol, just like Lightning. So Ark has, again, similarities with Lightning, right? They're both liquidity protocols. Liquidity requirements like capital allocation, capital requirements are higher, extremely higher compared to Lightning. That's the second sort of trade-off, right? The main trade-off being not being as instant as Lightning. The second trade-off being capital requirements, but that's not an end user trade-off. That is a service provider trade-off. That is their concern. It's a business problem. It's not the end user's concern, right? The service provider, they provide liquidity to protocol, and they provide liquidity to fund these pool transactions, and pool transaction is the coin join transaction. On Ark, every payment takes place in a coin join. Maybe I had to clarify that, right? So it's a coin join protocol. It's a rapid coin join protocol, and you make a payment in a coin join in a footprint minimal way. So that's what Ark is. And then you have a new coin join session in a very frequent intervals, i.e. in every 5 seconds. And the service provider is the blinded coordinator of that coin join round. And the service provider creates a new coin join session in very rapid intervals, like in every 5 seconds, i.e. This is configurable by them. Just to keep things simple, every 5 seconds, let's say. And then when I make a payment, I join a coin join. I register my inputs, coins and the coins that I'm creating for the intended recipient, and then I sign it. And then you have a new session in every 5 seconds. And then the service provider provides liquidity to these coin join transactions. So typically an on-chain coin join has like hundreds of inputs, and in theory can be thousands of inputs and thousands of outputs, right? On Ark, it's not the case. On Ark, an Ark coin join is just one input, one output. That one input is provided by the service provider, right? Service providers provide liquidity to coin join transaction with their own on-chain inputs. They provide inputs to fund the shared UTXO. There is one output, and that's the shared UTXO, right? And that shared UTXO contains virtual transaction outputs of all recipients of that particular coin join round in a shared UTXO. So that, yes, you have to provide liquidity in every 5 seconds on an ongoing basis. And in fact, you lock up your liquidity in that shared UTXO for 4 weeks. So the requirement is that you have to provide liquidity. You lock up liquidity for 4 weeks, and you do it in every 5 seconds until 4 week expires, so until the 4 week is over. So you have to constantly lock up liquidity for 4 total weeks. And the capital requirements are extremely high. And that, compared to Lightning, because on Lightning it's bi-directional. You move funds forever. Here it's an ongoing basis, one way only. But that is not my concern as an end user. Like, it is a service provider concern. So Ark solves a technical problem called inbound liquidity and introduces a business problem, capital.
Mm-hmm.
One is not addressable from what I can tell from my experience. Lightning inbound liquidity is a flaw. Like, it is not addressable. There are things you can do to improve on that inbound liquidity. You can improve it, certainly, but you cannot address that. And it's an issue. It's like a flaw. A flaw as in for end users, not for vendors. And that's what Ark solves. Ark solves a technical problem, inbound liquidity.
Mm-hmm.
Yet you have a problem, capital, and just like LSPs, right? LSPs also have capital requirements, but here it's more extreme for the service providers. And it's not my concern. It's the service provider concern. It's a free market. They'll be allocating liquidity, providing service. They charge liquidity fees, just like Lightning. It's configurable, could be 10 basis points, 50, 100. It's configurable by them. So there will be many competing service providers on Ark.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Just a quick message from our sponsor, Voltage. Voltage empowers engineers to integrate Bitcoin and Lightning Network payments into their business stack with an enterprise-grade experience. The team at Voltage is building the complete toolset so that you can do more than simply spin up nodes, but also understand and interpret your node's data. Their new product, Surge, gives engineers the capability to quickly solve problems and optimize operations. With node insights and visibility through time series data, you get dynamic and complex insights never available before. You can get complete control with insanely fast onboarding, advanced client-side encryption, and zero management infrastructure, making backups, networking, and upgrades simple. Get a free 7-day trial today at voltage.cloud. Do you expect that the service providers on Ark will be earning a different amount over time? If we just kind of branch out and look long term here, Lightning service providers and Ark service providers, will they earn roughly the same for the liquidity they provide, or will there be differences in your view?
I think it will be very similar, but obviously Ark could be a bit higher because of the intensity of capital requirements. It could be higher, it could be not. Well, time will tell. Really, it's a free market, right? Service providers can have their own custom fee tiers, and they'll be competing with others. But in theory, it is a liquidity protocol like Lightning, and they charge liquidity fees for the service they provide. On Lightning, LSPs charge liquidity fees for the routing service they provide. On Ark, ASPs charge liquidity fees for the coinjoin service, blinded coinjoin service they provide with their own liquidity.
I see.
It's a percentage-based charge, just like Lightning.
Right. Okay. So now I want to touch on this topic of a service provider, because when you look out at the landscape of Bitcoin scaling solutions, there's a lot of various words used to describe service providers in different protocols. For example, state chains have coordinators, side chains may have a federation. We've talked about Ark service providers and Lightning service providers. How do you can you go through the trust trade-offs in each of these examples and talk about, whether or not a service provider is the role the service provider is actually playing in the protocol, and what trade-offs a user needs to know, specifically as it pertains to things like state chain coordinators and side chain federations, and how
Yeah.
that compares to Arc.
Yeah, so unfortunately, yeah, that's a good one. And unfortunately, there has been some misconceptions in the community, like claiming Arc is not trustless. No, it is trustless. It is a distinct layer two with unilateral exit. You can exit if you want to, if something goes wrong on a second layer. So it is a trustless protocol, just like Lightning. It is a distinct layer two, just like Lightning, with unilateral exit,
And so
just
your
like
service provider on Arc has no ability to hold on to your
they have
funds.
no ability, they have zero ability to steal your Bitcoin. They can, in theory, double spend these coin joins in the mempool level. Yes, yeah, that's why you should wait for confirmations, but you don't have to wait for confirmations to spend them, right? Whether it's Lightning or an internal transfer. Um, and once it's confirmed, once the pool transaction is confirmed, it's yours. ASP, the service provider, can no longer spend it, like steal it. It's confirmed, it's there, it's yours, it belongs to you. Um, it is yours. ASPs have no ability to steal yours. And if something goes wrong, you can revert your money back to your own chain by triggering unilateral closure. Um, and I don't see any differences between LSPs and ASPs. It's the same trade-off model. LSPs and ASPs. In fact, ASPs are even better because of the privacy benefits you have. LSPs, they can extract the payment link from sender to recipient, even with things like blinded paths. Hubs in the middle, they can collude to extract payment info because the payment on Lightning, they're linked through like a bold 11 hash along the rail. And they can collude, they can comply with OFAC or whatever. They can collude to extract your info from the sender end to the recipient end. On Arc, on Lightning, they can do it. On Arc, no. It's a coin join. There is no way telling. Like, there is no way to link sender and recipient in a coin join. Arc is an off-chain coin join protocol. Um, but in terms of the trust model, they are the same. LSPs and ASPs are the literal same. LSPs and ASPs, they can neither steal Bitcoin nor sort of inflate Bitcoin, right? The Lightning and Arc, they both rely on the base layer and it's auditable, right? They cannot steal Bitcoin. Your Bitcoins are secured by the Bitcoin script, right? Bitcoin script grants you the permission, right, to access your funds if something goes wrong on Lightning and on Arc. And Lightning has similarities on that in terms of the unilateral closure, like forced closures on Lightning, the unilateral closures on Arc, they're similar. Or LSPs and ASPs, it's both hub and spoke model, right? And obviously, we're saying Lightning is trending towards a more centralized approach. LSPs, right? Well, also single entity routers can also censor you, blacklist you. Same trade-off goes here too. In fact, I think like if we not here to federate them, like we can federate LSPs and ASPs, and if we make federate them, right, it becomes it becomes more robust, right? It becomes harder to be captured by state. But that's an off topic. I think that's another category, like topic to discuss. But LSPs and ASPs, they're both hubs. It's a hub and spoke model. They're both hubs. They both provide liquidity, and they both cannot steal your Bitcoin.
And how
But
does that
LSPs,
compare to state chains, side chains,
Yeah,
things like
side chains is a
Fediman.
different. So side chains depends on what kind of side chains you're using. So on Bitcoin, we have two side chains, Liquid and RSK. RSK is merge mined, and I think it shares like 2 or 3% of hash rate, so it's not quite secure, right? So 2 or 3 on hash rate can collude to steal funds, like mining hash rate. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think that's from what I've heard. On Liquid, on the other hand, it's a it's a federated sidechain, right? It's 11 out of multisig, geographically distributed federation members, and they can collude and steal a Bitcoin too. Uh, Hypothetically speaking, if we have a trustless two-apex sidechain with simplicity at some point, because in simplicity we can do a ZKP verifier, and we can do a cool bunch of other cool stuff. But we don't have it. We're not there yet, right? So sidechains are not trustless. Fediman is not trustless. Gateway can rug pull you. They can steal a Bitcoin. State chain too. State chains are also trusted. Central coordinator, aka the state chain coordinator, can steal your money in collaboration with a previous state owner. Because state chain is a state design, like state channel design, like Lightning. You also have states, like you sign channel states, like you sign states, right? And the previous state owner, right? The owner of the state, like the coin ownership, changes in every state, and the previous owner can collude with the coordinator to steal money, to steal that fund from the current owner of that UTX, of the fund, of the Bitcoin funds. This is not the case on Ark. Ark service providers have no ability to steal your funds.
I see. Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about the scalability of Ark. Can you talk to me about the on-chain footprint of Ark, and maybe again in the context of some of these other scaling solutions we've discussed?
Sure. So on-chain footprint, Ark does a great job compared to Lightning on-chain footprint wise. Lightning is a layer 2, heavily relying on the base layer to operate. You have to open channels to onboard, and you have to close channels very often, right, to operate. Um, um, in the middle, yeah, in between, it's okay, but you have to touch the chain very often for Lightning to work. On Arc, it's not the case. You can acquire, like, you pollute on chain only when you do peg ins and peg outs. And I like Arc, the sidechain analogy for Arc, because Arc is kind of like a trustless two-way sidechain. You know, we can we can create analogies between Lightning, Arc, and like we can give analogies to Lightning. Like we can resemble Lightning with Arc, or on chain, or coinjoins, or even I don't know, maybe even state chains. There's some similarities, but Lightning, the friction to onboarding, and also the footprint, right? The footprint, it doesn't. I mean, the onboarding Lightning, opening channels or closing them, it inherently doesn't scale. With things like channel factories and multi-party channels, maybe, or coin pools, like you can batch channels in one UTXO. So yes, you can do it, but the problem is closing them. Like, how do you close them? And when you close channel, you have to reveal that channel from the shared UTXO, and that itself doesn't scale, right? Thinking at a mainstream adoption scale, right, on a global scale, right, it doesn't scale. Bitcoin base layer have no ability, as I cannot accommodate channel closings, right, at a global scale. That's what Arc solves, right? Arc, well, you can batch channels in Lightning too. In Arc 2, we can batch VTX2s and issue UTXO, very similar. But the closing part is what marks magical, because Arc operates one way only, i.e., you destroy coins, you create new coins, like one way only. And because it's a shared UTXO model, we have a bunch of virtual UTXOs. They nested under a shared UTXO. We don't have to reveal channels, aka in our context, virtual UTXOs, from the virtual utility, from the shared UTXO to claim them. Because they are one way only, and when you spend them, I mean, when you redeem them, like eCash, short-lived eCash nodes. I like this analogy though. Like virtual UTXOs are analogous to eCash nodes. When you have an eCash node, you can redeem it to pay a Lightning invoice, right? Or you can do an internal transfer in eCash. You redeem a node, you create a new node. On Ark is the same, like virtual UTXOs are similar to eCash nodes, but they're short-lived. They expire after 4 weeks. You redeem them to create new ones, or you redeem them, like you redeem a virtual UTXO to pay a Lightning invoice. It's very similar. And because we give them an expiry of 4 weeks, right? A VTXO expires after 4 weeks. VTXLs, virtual UTXOs, under a shared UTXO, they all expire after 4 weeks. And we assume users to spend their VTXOs in this time frame. We expect all intended recipients of all VTXOs under a shared UTXO to be spent, claimed, redeemed in this time frame in a subsequent coinjoin transaction in this 4-week time frame. And when you think about it, if all VTXOs under a shared UTXO are claimed, are spent, liquidity is sort of on the service provider's end. It's like a one it's like a single hop payment. It's me, I'm the sender, the service provider in the middle hop, and the recipient. It's like a one hop payment, single hop payment. I push my liquidity into service provider push liquidity to the recipient in, and I push my liquidity service provider in an off-chain transaction. I'm not diving deep into details, but I redeem VTXO, and that redemption gives the ownership of that VTXO, the whole VTXO, entire funds in that VTXO to the service provider, so that service provider can push their own on-chain funds into a shared UTXO, that contains VTXO of my intended recipient. And this entire thing, like payment schedule from sender to the recipient, is atomic in nature. And a double spend attempt, as I said, for the coinjoin transaction breaks the atomicity of the payment schedule.
I see. This is really interesting. It seems like you're inheriting a lot of properties from a lot of different protocols, and you've talked about how it's similar to Bitcoin, similar to Lightning, coinjoins, eCash. There's elements of different protocols all embedded in Ark. Do you expect that there will be more iterations from other builders coming up with new protocols that also combine other existing protocols into one? Like, is this something is Ark designed to be the, protocol that takes, Bitcoin to global adoption, or is this the beginning of many people coming in, building out many different protocols that combine many other protocols?
Can I be honest? I
Yeah.
don't think you can do it. I think maybe I'm biased, but I'm very confident that Arc is the most optimal version of how a shared DTXO model can be. It's the most optimal version. I think I've been working on this for 6 months, and it's been constantly evolving. I've been constantly iterating the idea, and I am very confident it's the most optimal version. Like Arc is great as it is, and I know the design space is too large, I agree, but Arc, in my opinion, maybe a biased opinion, is the most optimal version as it can have, like as a shared UTXO model can get.
Mm,
To be honest, I don't
interesting.
see, I don't see how you can improve on that, because it scales Bitcoin in a privacy preserving way, and that's all we need now. Like that's what Arc does already. It scales Bitcoin in a privacy preserving way, is what it's what it is. It's what it does, right?
Hmm.
And like what an iteration can be from here. There could be improvements, yes, but I don't see like like a major iteration from the overall design. I can't
Fair
think of
enough.
it. Yeah.
That's fair. And I mean, as the creator of the protocol, I think it's important that you do have that view. You know, if you didn't have that view, I'd be concerned that, you know, why are you building it if you didn't believe in it? So I appreciate you sharing that. I want to talk next about adoption and what happens from here, because you're working on building this. It eventually comes out to the world, and you have now a task of getting the world to use it, and it's a challenge, and it's a different challenge.
Yeah.
um, Not so much a technical one sometimes, but sometimes it's a psychological one. Sometimes it's getting people excited about a protocol. It's a hard and a different challenge to face. What does the path look like for Ark to actually get people on board using this, um, when you have so many other competing protocols that are, raising a lot of money, or have, I look at Lightning and I see a lot of implementations that are either VC backed or tied to large corporations. I see Fedi just raised a really large round to, bring their vision to life. Does Ark take this VC approach to growing this protocol? How do you scale amidst all this competition?
So yeah, first of all, like I am skeptical that Org is getting mainstream adoption. I'm very skeptical. I'm skeptical of everything. Org is a superior piece of tech. It scales Bitcoin in a privacy preserving way. I'm super confident about it. But we have this assumption, right? As a developer, right, of this wizard, right? We are assuming that it is getting adopted, right? It will be adapted at some point, but it's a big assumption. It may not end up getting adapted. We don't know it. We don't know if Arc or a self-custodial solution of any kind has a product market fit for users. And users may just not care about self-custody. We don't know. Is Arc really meaningful enough for people to adopt? I don't know. Time will tell, really. But I love this. I love challenges, right? I mean, when building Bitmetrics on Liquid, uh, yeah, I didn't care about the product market fit, really. And it turns out it didn't have product market fit. I mean, Liquid in general seems to be failure so far. No one uses it. But like, it was a challenge for me, right? Like building an automated market maker based on the UTXO model. It was a challenge for me. And I rather fulfillment versus success. I felt fulfilled when I built, shipped an AMM, like a DeFi primitive on Liquid. I was fulfilled, but it wasn't successful. It didn't succeed, but I feel fulfilled. Same goes to Arc. Arc may not succeed because we don't know if people cares. A
Mhm.
self-custody solution, right? It's a big assumption. It may not get adapted. People might just be fine with Strike, Vault of Satoshi, or Bitcoin Beach Wallet. They might just be fine with it. I don't know. It's a big assumption, but it's a big challenge for me. I'm very interested in Arc because it's a superior piece of tech, and I have high confidence. It will work, and it's a superior piece of tech. Um, and it's a challenge for me. It has been a challenge for me to scale Bitcoin. Really, scaling Bitcoin. That's what I've been dreaming of since the very early days. And like I am here for the challenge, right? I cannot tell if it's getting adopted or not, really. And
Fair
obviously,
enough.
VC approach. So Arc is an open protocol. I'll be contributing to protocol specs in the next few months. I'm tied up. I'm lately tied up with answering questions and addressing questions and mailing lists, and on Telegram we have a Telegram community group and all that. And the my next phase is going to be contributing to protocol specs. We have a GitHub repo already, Arc Network. You can feel free to check it out. I'll be contributing to specs. We have BOTS. It stands for Basis of Arc Technology. It's also in line with the Nostr Arc story. Um, in Lightning we have bolts, basis of Lightning technology. And I'll be contributing to them. Anyone feel free to contribute, obviously. But obviously you have to understand deep down how Arc works before contributing. It's going to take time. There is a bit of a learning curve there, yes. But I mean, my goal is to really build an infrastructure company for Ark. I'm assembling a team of Bitcoin devs, engineers, cyberpunks. I don't qualify. I don't qualify myself as a software engineer. Quite really, I'm not a cyberpunk. I'm a wizard. I'm a Bitcoin wizard. I mean, I'm confident with this title more. I'm a Bitcoin wizard. I self-identified as a wizard, not a cyberpunk. I'm not quite a programmer myself, although I did some programming in the past. But that's not my sort of strong skill set. No. Um, I'm a wizard. I like protocol design, protocol architecture, and Bitcoin scaling in general, and privacy too. And that's what I do. I love crafting magic, and I'm assembling a team of cyberpunks, Bitcoin engineers, and DAOs to build the first implementation, Arc implementation. We'll do some prototyping first, whether it's on Liquid or Signet Inquisition or MidUniNet or Testnet. We'll do some prototyping. We're trying to figure out what to do prototyping first, but we'll do some prototyping. I think it's fair to expect a prototype, like a fully functional prototype, like a POC level, sometime this year, either on Liquid or on Inquisition. We are trying to figure that out yet again. And I'll be planning to create a company, like kind of like Arc Labs, similar to Lightning Labs. I'll be individually contributing the specs, yes. Anyone is free to build their own implementation in line with the protocol specs. But me, as personally, I will be creating a company for it too, like Arc Labs, to build a key infrastructure for Arc, the client, the CLI, like a user preferred interface where you can reference to if you're building your own client implementation, dev tooling, SDKs, and all that resources. My goal is to create a company. Like this is more like a mid long term vision to create a company to build the key Arc infrastructure.
Very cool. And now, in the topic of like building out a company, this company, especially if you're comparing to something like Lightning Labs, where it's VC funded, there's an expectation down the road of like a future return.
Yeah,
How do you
monetization.
square that with the Arc vision?
Yeah, so I think infrastructure companies are inherently monetizable. I'm not sure how Blockstream is profitable or even Lightning Labs. I have no idea. For Arc, I think it's going to be, we'll be building dev tooling around it and some sort of APIs. Like, I don't know, I have like some also this asset issuance vision on top, and like building dev tooling and SDKs and all that. And I think these things are inherently monetizable and monetizable in terms of devs.
I see. Okay. And now, in if you look out into the next few years, like you're building out this company, you're assembling a team, whose job is it to bring in actual users? Is this going to be a job that Arc Labs fulfills, or is this something that you expect other companies to come into the ecosystem and spur on adoption as well?
Yeah, so I believe in this. Like, if a product has its product market fit, there is no need for market push, no nothing. It will figure itself out, right? Market, it will organically grow, will organically acquire its own user base, right? So that there is no need for pushing from our end. It's just gonna organically grow. We'll contribute to software, right? We'll contribute to client software, dev tooling, with a focus on devs, yes, and it will organically grow from there. Hopefully, it has its product market fit. The market will figure out the rest.
But surely there must be value to accelerating that, right? Like if you look at the world of tech and you look at all the companies that exist today, many of which have product market fit, basically all of them still spend on marketing and growth, and they kind of
Yeah,
try to add fuel to that fire. And so I think about your vision of bringing all the people onto Arc, or accelerating Bitcoin adoption. And I think how do you do that organically, and just kind of let that take care of itself? When there's so much precedent for companies taking the approach of spending money, getting awareness through paid marketing and growth to try and accelerate their project's vision.
yeah. I think I'm aware of that, right? Some companies with product market fits also trying to push some agenda, some marketing effort. Yeah, same can go to here too. Not like saying not, Maybe like one way of doing it like is like supporting devs, like third-party devs building on Ark, shipping their wallets, clients, use cases, apps on top of Ark, supporting them in some meaningful ways, whether it's financial or not. Supporting devs and dev adoption could lead to mainstream adoption. That's one way to look at it, I think.
Interesting. Now, you released or announced Ark a few weeks back, and you've kind of gone on this tour a little bit. You went to the Bitcoin conference and you spoke about it there. What feedback have you gotten from the community in the last few weeks? And has any of it kind of changed your vision or views on the protocol's design?
Yeah, so people from what I see are excited but are equally skeptical, which is great. This is the way. And I'm trying to kind of address these questions. People are getting more and more familiar over time with Arc. That's great. Addressing your questions, apparently doing a good job. Initially, I think I did a terrible job though, communicating Arc with the broader community. I'm not a great communicator. I never claimed to be, but I'm trying to communicate, address problems, sort of address some misconceptions and all that. And people so far seem to be excited and skeptical too. And I'm trying to address this skepticism. Orc, while some people may claim it's a vaporware, but it's not. It's an idea. I speak with my experience, with my Covenant experience, and it's an idea. I'll be working more on sort of making the specs, obviously contributing the specs, and also we also have like a website deep dive explainer, making it more comprehensive, adding more examples and all that. But so far, like we've got some examples like a one-page explainer, a brief brief one-pager explainer, and deep down like technical explainer. Also, we have like on the mailing list we have some flows, user flows from all list above. Feel free to check them out, guys. But from the feedback I get, I couldn't find a single person like a wizard, Bitcoin wizard, sort of invalidating my point. The arc design, like edge cases, like I couldn't find any. That's what I can tell. But people are very excited. Like Bitcoin people, like in the Bitcoin community, well, you might see it on the Bitcoin Twitter, right? People are excited. But also technical people in the Bitcoin technical community, they are also very excited about it. That's from what I can tell. And I haven't seen like a single sort of like invalidating point that Arc can fail, Arc may not work, or Arc is a flaw of design. I haven't seen it yet. And I'm very confident we will never see it.
Interesting. You've used the word Bitcoin wizard a few
Wizard.
times here. I want to get an understanding. What is a Bitcoin wizard? And you mentioned, trying to attract more cyberpunks and Bitcoin wizards to your mission. How do you plan to kind of attract these Bitcoin wizards to build on Ark?
I think yeah, Arc is a superior design of its own. It's obvious to me. It's a superior piece of tech. Again, it's superior in my opinion. Like I cannot be modest. Like just I'm biased, but it's superior tech. And cyberpunks are smart, right? They are attracted to smart ideas, especially if it's privacy preserving, and yet it is self-custodial. They are attracted. It's not too hard to get their interest, right? And that's what I see so far. People are excited to contribute to Arc. I'm currently, assembling a team. There is a saying like you need less generals, more soldiers, and cyberpunks are like soldiers, and wizards are like this generals. Like wizards craft magic, and they sort of do the the protocol design, architect, and the cyberpunks ship the actual shit, right? And they write the actual implementation. I know that this is how I see it.
That's interesting. And I think it takes someone who's deep in the weeds to understand the difference there. Because to me, I look at this on the outside and I see everyone writing code in any capacity. I look at as coder, and I say, okay, they're all a class of their own. But you see differences between the protocol design and the actual shipment of
Yeah,
code.
I specifically separate them. I'm in favor of separating them. They are two different expertise, two different sort of galaxies.
Do we
One
have
is
enough people working in both of those camps in the
I don't think,
Bitcoin
yeah,
and Lightning and Ark ecosystem today?
yeah, I think overall, no. I mean, I think obviously need more builders, though, to be honest. We need more cyberpunks than wizards. I think we have enough number of wizards. Obviously, we need more wizards, yes. But I think it's doing okay, right? We need more soldiers. We need more shadowy quarters, right? We need more execution. We need more devs. That's from what I see from my experience, right? We don't have enough talent. There is a saying like Bitcoin is scarcer than the Bitcoin talent itself. So Bitcoin talent is scarcer than the Bitcoin itself, right? Which is directly. We need more talent. We need to more educate more on people. We need more education initiatives like Base 58. Um, we need we need more devs. We need more talent because they're just so the design space is so large, so many opportunities, so many things you can build on Bitcoin. In fact, other layer proposals maybe too, but we don't have, I guess, enough talent. We need more.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to get up in front of all the Bitcoin builders and kind of pitch them on how to acquire more Bitcoin talent, what is your pitch to people? How do we get more developers building on Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think incentives plays a role in this, right? Incentives in Bitcoin space. Bitcoin being a Bitcoin dev is not highly aligned with Ethereum. Well, I mean, compared to Ethereum, right? Ethereum is, because you can do a pre-mine shitcoin and all that, and attract devs, and attract can just dump on retail and be rich. And Bitcoin is not the case. It's you have ethics has to be there. You have to be an ethical person to build help. You have to do it for the cause and for self fulfillment versus success. I think, and it's really hard to find like people fits into this category, these characteristics. I think it's more of a characteristic thing, but you never know. I mean, we always that's one thing. Like it has to be like character ethics fundamentals has to be there for Bitcoiner dev, like Bitcoin for Bitcoiner talent, but also you really need to reach out these people like with that characteristics, right? Characteristics, as in like lowering their time preference, in being more in favor of fulfillment versus success and doing it for the cow Bitcoin. And like we can reach out to these people, like people in line with these characteristics. We have to be able to reach out to them and be able to educate them, which is the
Mm-hmm.
second thing, right? We have to educate them to convert them to a Bitcoin talent, and it takes time. So there is a bit of a learning curve, right? We need to educate more. We have to educate them some magical way, and that's what I like. Educational initiatives like Bitcoin Summer and Base 58 and Brinks Class, all that. We need more of these, and we also be able to reach out more.
I love it. Okay, let's finish this off with a quick rapid fire round. I do this at the end of every show. It's called the lightning round. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Just a quick message from our sponsor, Stackwork. Stackwork is a lightning powered platform for generating high quality transcripts of all your audio or video content. They combine AI engines and hundreds of human workers all over the world who are paid over the Lightning Network to assemble these transcripts. And that's what lets Stackwork create better, faster, and less expensive transcripts. To see the results for yourself, you can check out my personal website where I host transcripts for all my podcast episodes. If you want to learn more about Stackwork, visit stackwork.com. That is STAK work.com. Okay, if you could only hold one asset for the next decade and it could not be Bitcoin, what asset would it be?
Olive oil, maybe. Yeah,
Olive oil.
yeah. I don't know. It's an asset. It's not an asset, but I don't know. Like maybe features. Like
Does olive oil last a decade?
yeah, probably not. Right, probably not. I don't know. Like it's the ultimate reserve currency now.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's olive trees or an olive farm or something?
yeah. It could be something like that. Yeah, maybe oil farm. I don't know. Like I don't know some. I don't know some industry or some company in the olive oil industry or something. I don't know. It feels like the ultimate reserve currency if Bitcoin never shipped, right? If Bitcoin never happened. I don't know.
What makes you say it's the ultimate reserve currency? I'm curious now.
I don't know, like it's because like it's not seed oil and it's great. It's just great, right? That's the only sort of liquid form of non-seed oil option we have now, and we need olive oil, right, for the food industry and all that, and it's very healthy too. Like I don't know, that's how I
Fair
think.
enough. Okay, has there been any book that has meaningfully changed your view of the world?
Oh, I'm not quite a reader, guys. I'm sorry. Like really, I don't really read. I'm sorry.
Interesting.
Like Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the last book I read. I think it's from years ago. Um, I really don't. I also don't really listen to podcasts either. I don't know what do I do.
What is your mechanism for coming up with new ideas for how the world works? Because you seem to have many of them.
I think I feel like things are revealed to me. I don't know. I think my crown chakra is too blown up, and I'm not sure. I feel like things are revealed to me over time. I don't put an effort to it. Like it just naturally happens.
Interesting. Who is one person in the Bitcoin or Lightning community that you'd like to give a shout out to for doing great work?
Yeah, that's a very tough one. I think in the Lightning world or in Bitcoin in general. I mean, I love Andrew Postra himself. I love him. I admire him. His work. I love him. His work on simplicity, contributions, Miniscript, and Liquid in general. I admire him a lot.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Um, just before you go, where can listeners go to learn more about you
Yeah.
and Ark?
Yeah. So guys, we have a website, arkpil.me, and we have a Telegram community group, Ark Community. Feel free to go check out, guys. You can find the links for Telegram group on arkpil.me page. Feel free to reach out, guys, me if you want. If you have any questions, or obviously feel free to ask on the community group. And I mean, also don't hesitate, obviously, to reach out me personally. Um, and I'm also on Twitter, Bitcoin. I mean, my name is Burak, Burak, the guy with the burger eating bug in the picture.
Cool.
So feel free to reach me out. I mean, Burak is like a pseudonym, right? It's easy, my first name, but it's also a pseudonym, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to find me on Twitter, guys. My name is Burak. My
Awesome.
handle is BRQGO.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I learned a ton, and I'm sure listeners will as well. And I hope we can do this again soon.
Yeah, cool, man. Thank you for taking me. Really, thank you for taking time, and I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, thank you for reaching out, and having me on the show.
Of course. In the last 30 days, you guys sent in 35,818 sats, and that came in from 38 different supporters. Big shout out to everyone who's been contributing. I keep on seeing new messages from new users. So thank you for everyone who's been sending in sats and kind words. Let's run through a couple of the latest comments. We have heart, heart, heart emoji on episode 108 with Maxim Orlovsky. We have a wow, this episode is just so good. Maxim is such an ambitious genius. Wish him the best of luck. Good questions asked, and overall very kind conversation. That was an anonymous user on episode 108. Once again, Michael Machulev had a emoji where the guy is kind of scratching his chin, kind of curious. Sent 500 sats. Siggy47 said, great episode on stacking sats 5. That's with Jesse Berger. We have Blockchain Boog, who said, I have a better understanding of RGB, but still don't understand it 100%. Is RGB the new age Linux? I will leave that to Maxim to respond. But thank you for the 5,000 sats and appreciate the comment. BTC Rich said, my favorite podcast you have done all year. Very thought-provoking. And this again was on episode 108 with Maxim Orlovsky. Swiss Road to Crypto said, nice one, Kevin, again on the same episode. Thank you all for sending in sats and comments. Got a few more episodes lined up for you this week. Cannot wait to see what you guys send in.